Just gotta pull up the Zoom. You guys ready? Sounds good.
Yeah, so I'll stick around for this.
All set?
Yep.
Good evening, everybody. This is Seth Engelborg, Chair of the Nantucket Conservation Commission. We are meeting today for the June 26, 2025 meeting of the Conservation Commission in a hybrid fashion, with some people here physically present in the Public Safety Facility Room and others on Zoom. First thing we'll do is establish a quorum. So members, when you hear your name, please respond in the affirmative. Mike Miserelli,
Here.
RJ Turcott,
Here.
Joe Flandowski,
Here.
Tim Brain,
Here.
John Schaefer,
Here.
Linda Williams.
Here.
Thank you, everybody. We'll now go through our continuances today. The ones that I know about are under notice of intent. We have Nantucket Islands Land Bank at Smooth Hummocks Way, SC 48 3893, continued till July 24th. We also have the Summer House of Nantucket Realty Trust at 10 and 16 Ocean Avenue, continued till continued till July 10th. We have West Assured LLC at 62 Winoma Way, SC 48 3869, continued till July 24th. And what else?
Also, the Sconset Beach Preservation Fund Core Array Project.
SPPF at 59 through 83 Baxter Road, SC 48 3759, continued until July 10th.
That's right.
And then we have one certificate of compliance, which is incomplete, which we are going to continue for them. That is MUL 25 LLC at 25 Willard Street, SC 48 3503. It did not have all the information that was required to open this hearing. Particularly, there's no topographic information or topography on the map or plan that was submitted. And in our regulations, these are required. So we will continue that certificate of compliance until July 10th to receive receipt of the topographic information. Okay, anything else?
That's it for continuances. Sorry.
All right. With those continuances being read, do we have a motion to accept the agenda?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mike. Is there a second? Thank you, Tim, for the second. By roll call vote, Mike Miserelli,
Aye.
RJ Turcott,
Aye.
Joe Plandowski,
Aye.
Tim Brain,
Aye.
John Schaefer,
Aye.
Linda Williams,
Aye.
Seth Engelborg, aye. That carries unanimously. So we'll begin with Nantucket Islands Land Bank. Wait, is it 41 Jefferson? Oh, yes, we do need to do public comment. Apologies. We will now move to public comment for items not on the agenda tonight. If you have any public comments, please raise your hand either in person or approach the microphones or virtually using the hand raise feature. And we will be holding to the select board's protocol for public comment, limiting speakers to 3 minutes or less and not engaging in deliberation, just taking comments for future action. With that being said, does anyone physically present have a public comment? Does anyone on Zoom have a public comment? Seeing none, we'll move on to the public hearing, and now we'll go to notice of intent. We're going to begin in the no waiver required section B, which at this point we have one. which is Nantucket Islands Land Bank at 41 Jefferson Avenue, SC 483910. As a reminder, we only open these if anyone would like to. Commissioners, any interest in opening this one? Members of the public, any interest? If so, please raise your hand. Seeing none, is there a motion to close the hearing for that notice of intent?
So moved.
Thank you, RJ. Is there a
Second.
Thank you, Mike. By roll call vote, Mike Mazzarelli,
Aye.
RJ Turcott,
Aye.
Joe Plandowski,
Aye.
Tim Brain,
Aye.
John Schaefer,
Aye.
Linda Williams,
Aye.
Seth Engelborg, aye. That carries unanimously. And we don't have anything in section C anymore. So we'll move down to section D. These are notices of intent post January 1st submissions that require a waiver. We'll hear all these individually. And we'll begin with Nantucket Islands Land Bank at 70, 72, 70, and 74 Washington Street, SC 483907, represented by Liz Phelps. Liz, good evening.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Liz Phelps. I'm representing Nantucket Islands Land Bank on this application for shrub management on the property. I did present this during the last hearing, but just as a reminder, it's the site consists of 3 adjoining naturalized parcels that are owned by the land bank. There were previously 2 houses on the property that were moved off, and the site was restored with beach grass. A small cluster of groundsel shrub has sprouted up in the south central portion of the property, and we're proposing to prune the shrubs primarily to maintain the view shed. Some of the commissioners did raise some concerns during the last hearing, so I just wanted to try to clarify a few points that I may not have conveyed very well the last time. The pruning that we're proposing to do is to maintain the view shed along Washington Street. We do similar view shed management at our properties along Washington Street as well as throughout the island, and that includes places like Creeks Preserve, Settlers Landing and Nantucket, Low Beach and Sconset. And we maintain the vegetation at a height that allows for a view shed, but does not adversely impact the health of the plant. It is an important public benefit to preserve the view shed, both for year-round residents and for visitors. I wanted to emphasize that the land bank recognizes and values the importance of dune vegetation for dune stabilization and overall coastal resiliency. And any pruning that's done at land bank properties definitely places these considerations at the forefront. We do not believe that pruning for view shed management impacts the health of the shrubs, and in fact, it actually helps to promote the growth and the vigor, the health of the plants, including the root systems. We're willing to wait to do the pruning until the off season if the commission prefers that, but we do think that it's important to maintain the site in a way that's consistent with the rest of our properties along Washington Street to maintain the view shed and a consistent aesthetic along Washington Street. So we're respectfully requesting waivers to do the pruning in the dune on the premise that there will be no adverse impacts to the resource areas, and it will provide a significant public benefit. So I appreciate you allowing me to hopefully address some of the concerns, but if you have additional comments, certainly willing to try to address those as well.
Thank you, Liz.
Thank you.
Commissioners, any questions or comments? Yeah, go ahead, John.
I went down there after the last meeting and there's only like 1 or 2 of those, right? Maybe that
Yeah,
are big enough
there's
to
a few-
prune.
There's a handful of them,
Yeah.
but some of them are hard to see because they're
Right,
beach
but-
grass.
I don't see them impacting the view at all, but that's just my take.
Thank you, John. Any other commissioners? Yes, RJ?
Yeah, so I rode by just a few minutes ago on the way here, and I could see the harbor. And I think we would give a property owner a hard time for doing this in the resource area, a private property owner. And I think if they do get to a size where they're a problem, I think it's worth revisiting the conversation. I mean, if they trim them, it's not catastrophic, but it just seems unnecessary.
URJ. Yes, Mike, I see you, I see you, Will, but let's take commissioners first.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't have a issue with the pruning. I would be in favor of granting the waiver to do so. They're, managing wetland views along the way. I certainly see the concerns of the shrubs are not being removed, nor are they requesting that, but I would be in favor of allowing the pruning.
Thank you. Any other commissioners? Yeah, Tim, go ahead.
Yeah, I agree with Mike, basically.
Okay. Anyone else? All right, so I just want to point to the regulations because I know I made a pretty strong opinion at last meeting, and hopefully it wasn't too forceful, but I want to point to the regulations that were adopted on January 1st, Appendix D specifically, which is the Town of Nantucket Viewshed Management Guidelines. Because this really, I think, hits on this issue at hand. So it says basically, the Conservation Commission finds that the proper maintenance of vegetation is needed to protect wildlife habitat, resiliency, erosion control, flood control, recreation, and wetland scenic views. Then there's a part about the buffer zone. This is not in the buffer zone. This is in the resource area. Then there's the part about no new vista cutting is allowed without first receiving a permit from the Conservation Commission. Once permitted, the view corridor may be maintained in keeping with those guidelines. No work is allowed within resource areas without a permit. Viewshed management outside of the 50-foot setback may qualify as a minor activity. It doesn't really apply here. Here's the things that are important. Maintenance pruning is not allowed within resource areas. Exception being the maintenance of vegetation along public pedestrian access ways. So we'll have to figure out if this project meets that exception or not. And then there's general guidelines. The first one doesn't apply. The second is, should a lot contain more than one structure viewshed corridor? Well, doesn't apply either. There's no structures. So it's just really number 3 through 5 that apply. 3 is lots open to the public as open space shall be allowed one corridor for every 100 linear feet of buffer zone resource areas. 4 is clear cutting is prohibited, as is the topping of trees. And 5 is pruning must preserve vegetative layers, habitat, and biodiversity. So I think our work here today is first to figure out if this is maintenance pruning along a public pedestrian access way. If it is, it could meet an exemption under our viewshed management guidelines. If it's not, and it's not allowed, then we need to go to the waivers that are being requested, and we need to evaluate each of the waivers. I think personally, there's one more viewshed management guideline. It's no viewshed management should be done between April 1st and September 30th. So I think we would definitely ask the land bank to do it in off season. But going back to the waiver, there's 2 waivers being requested here. The first, one of them is for significant public benefit. I think it would be an egregious overstep to say that this is for significant public benefit. I'm just gonna leave it at that. And then the last one, or the other one, is for no adverse impacts, no reasonable alternatives. I think there's points that could be made both for and against that one. So let's start by trying to determine if this is on a public pedestrian access way. So Will, can you put up the map, please? It's definitely along a road, but I don't know if it's along a pedestrian access way.
Which map are you looking for? And I also have
Oh yeah, you can make your comment, and then, yeah.
but which map too? I'm just gonna I'll try to do both.
I guess just the plot plan. I mean, and maybe we just look at the pictures, honestly.
Yeah. I just wanted to quickly, this is kind of going back, but I just wanted to make the distinction between like a view shed corridor in someone's backyard. This is obvious, but I feel like there is a distinction between a well-traveled public way and a view shed that's for everybody and a view shed that's for one guy on his back porch. I also, just on a staff level, I do see a public benefit on this one, but that's as staff. I have this. I haven't shared it yet, but
Yeah, that's fine.
all right.
And I see Linda's hand too. We'll get to her in a second. I don't think anyone's saying it wouldn't be for a public benefit. The word is significant. That's the word that matters.
In my opinion, through you,
Go ahead.
I think it's pretty significant.
All right.
But that's open to interpretation, but that would
yeah,
be
you
my
can share that
interpretation.
onto the.
All right, that should be shared now.
All right. And then can you scroll down to the photos showing where the, where in the area the. Yeah, keep scrolling. So, yeah, that's a good one. So the shrubs are kind of, in the middle of that grassy area there.
It's hard to see with the fence in the background, but
Liz, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
So obviously there's the beach access path at where the kayaks are. Is there any specifically in this vegetated area here?
There are no actual paths, but people do walk through. I mean, the beach grass is you can walk through it basically. So people do walk through it. And people do obviously walk along the road there too.
Thank you.
it's like a goat path.
So commissioners, thoughts on these questions that we have before us?
Seth,
Go ahead, John.
yeah, it looks certainly like there's a walkway there, so if we want to say that, it's traveled by the public, I think that's pretty obvious.
Anyone else?
I got my hand up here for a while.
Yeah, Linda, go ahead. Sorry.
I tend to agree with your assessment up to a point where we're talking about the path of travel issue. People do walk along that beach from the town pier, down to just strolling along there. Would that be support for the waiver if we consider walking along the beach also a path to this property? As opposed to coming straight off of Washington Street? And I have seen people walk straight off of Washington Street. So I'm with you on your take on this, and I was with you the last time we brought this up. But if we're talking about the two waivers, I don't know if I agree with Will that it's significant. So I'm sort of on the fence here as to how to approach it. But I appreciate what you had to say because I agree with you then, and I agree with you for the most part now.
Thank you, Linda. And, I know it's a difficult position that we're in here. I think that walking through the beach grass or walking along the road or walking along the harbor beach there doesn't meet the exception of being maintenance of vegetation along a public pedestrian access way. That would be like, let's say there was a gravel path or a boardwalk or something and a big tree was leaning over into it and the limbs are about to fall on people that were where the walkway was. That would be that exception. So I think we really should, if we're going to do this, work it into one of those waivers if we want to permit this. And that's originally what the land big asked for anyway. So Commissioners, now we need to talk about the two waivers that are before us. Who would like to speak on those? Mike?
Can you run down what the two are again, please?
Sure. The ones being requested here, let me just pull up the packet for a second. The ones being requested are for section 393H3A and also section 93H3E. And those are the following. A is, no, that's not the right place. A is that the commission may grant the waiver when they find that there's no adverse impacts and no reasonable alternatives. And E is the commission may grant the waiver from the regulations when the project as proposed provides a significant public benefit and adverse impacts are minimized. So those are the two that we would be looking at.
So I would say I don't see an adverse impact from pruning the shrub. They're not removing it. I'm going to go back to when there was buildings there before, and when they got removed, the view was tremendous. The thing with groundsel is can be what I qualify as an aggressive grower. It looks to me like it's already about 6 foot tall in that picture. They're going to wait till the fall to do the work in accordance with what we would ask, and they would be 7 foot perhaps by then. So, and then you get into another year, it's 8 foot. So I just see it as responsible management at this point that they're asking to prune the shrub and manage it from a height standpoint. So I see it as no adverse impact, and I'll stop short of using the word significant, but a public benefit for preserving the view.
Thank you, Mike. Does anybody think it qualifies under section E, the significant public benefit? If so, raise your hand.
I'm raising my hand for another issue,
I see you, Linda, but yeah.
not raising it for that.
Do you think it qualifies under that?
You
No.
asking me that? Or
No,
Mike?
Linda, you can, it doesn't seem like at least it doesn't seem like there's a majority of people who would agree with that. So Linda, go ahead, make your comment.
I think it came up the last time that maybe in several months' time, maybe by September, it might be an issue for public view shed. But right now it's not to me, which is why I thought maybe they should have come back later or after the summer, if they're not cutting it till September. That would be my druthers, is to give us a little bit more to base a waiver on. I'm having trouble with the significant part of it right this second, but it could be in 6 months, 7 months, there is a significant impact. So that's where I'm at the moment.
Thank you, Linda. We don't need, it doesn't sound like we're going to issue the waiver under section E for significant public benefit. It seems like if anything, we're issuing the waiver under A for no adverse impact, no reasonable alternative. So Will, go ahead.
Don't worry, it's not about the significant waiver. I just wanted to chime in with one other thing. I do, in my mind, as a plant nerd and an arborist, still am, keeping it up. It is responsible management for them to ask to do this now, rather than to wait until it's 10 feet tall when the foliage is further out towards the tips. And in order to get it back down to the size that they want or we approve or whatever, you have to do more aggressive pruning. That said, it's groundsel, it is a weed. It's fine, but it is, in my mind, like the proper planning thing to do if we're ever going to allow them to maintain it at a certain height. I see a benefit in them asking for it early while it's maybe already at the height they want it. I can't even remember at this point if that's the case, but that's all I wanted to say, just that pruning thing.
Thank you. And I mean, I agree with you in theory or from a plant care perspective, but we have to remember that under the Wetlands Protection Act, we judge applications on the basis of what they were proposed to do. So this is proposed to be done for viewshed management or to essentially protect the interest of wetland scenic views that is in the act, bylaw, and regulations. It's not really our job to determine if this is good horticulture. It's our job to determine is, does this action cause that interest to be protected with no adverse impacts to the other interests such as coastal resiliency, wildlife, storm damage, all the other interests? And does doing nothing also have the same protection to the interest? That is our very narrow focus here. We have to decide, does pruning that plant meet that interest with no adverse impacts to the other interests? RJ, go ahead.
Okay, so the second paragraph of the site description talks about how it's evident that it's been building sand accumulation and buildup. It's evident in the vegetated portion of the site, and I think trimming the groundsel tree, it would capture less. It's windy right now, the sand's blowing around, it'll knock less down, and it'll be worse for the dune, which is the resource area. If we can see over and around it, and it's not like directly on a path. So it's, I think, slightly worse for the resource area to trim it.
Thank you. Other commissioners? Mike?
I swear this will be my last little piece on it, but I'm just in favor of of no adverse impact with the pruning. I see what everybody's saying. I don't think they're suggesting to prune it drastically, and I just feel like they're being proactive, asking. So I would be in favor of the waiver under no adverse impact.
Thank you. And just to clarify here, we can put any conditions that would, we could put any conditions on the order that would require the trees to be pruned to a certain height, certain dimensions, or have, you know, additional filing as to what, when, and who and where they're gonna do it. You know, all that's within our purview, but I still don't think we have an answer. So other commissioners, time to weigh in. I've made my point clear. Mike's made his point clear. RJ's made his point clear.
I'd go with trimming.
Okay.
I'd also say that this ought to be added to the next review of regulations when we do it, because obviously it's not clear enough.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Yeah, I hear the significant impact is very much something that's subjective, and I'm inclined to say I don't see any harm. I say go ahead.
Thank you. So with that being said, do we have everything we need to close the hearing? Oh, no, we don't. We need to take public comment. At this point, is there any public comment? Seeing none. Will, do we have everything we need to close the hearing?
I am just checking if they needed NHESP, but Liz might be able to answer that before me.
We
Feel
did
free
not.
to chime in. Liz.
Yeah, we did not.
That's what I
Will.
thought. Cool. So yes, the answer is yes, they do have everything.
Thank you. Liz, would you like to close?
Yes, please.
Scam.
Okay. Is there a motion to close?
Motion to close.
Thank you, Joe. Is there a second?
Second.
All right. We'll go to a roll call vote. Mike Miserelli,
Aye.
Archer Turcott,
Aye.
Joe Plandowski,
Aye.
Tim Braden,
Aye.
John Schaefer,
Aye.
Linda Williams,
Aye.
Seth Ingeborg, aye. This notice of intent is closed. Liz, thank you.
Thank you all.
And we appreciate you being here for complicated filing.
Thank you.
That should have probably been less complicated. So sorry about
It
that.
was interesting. Yeah.
I apologize for, I know you probably weren't expecting this, so I apologize.
So I appreciate it. Thanks.
Anyways, we'll now move on in the hearing. We'll be moving to Carol at 3 Millbrook Road, SE 483909, represented by Don Bracken. Don, it's been a while, but good to see you.
Yeah, it has been. I've been letting Brian Madden do most of the heavy lifting for us, but yes, good to see everybody. So I'm obviously representing the project. This project was initiated with a failed Title V inspection. The existing septic system is too close to the groundwater. This is a pretty I would say convoluted plan and design. There were a lot of restrictions that we had to deal with. First off, there's an intermittent stream with a bordering vegetated wetland associated with it and a freshwater bank associated with it. And once we get the plan up, you can see the site. There are 2 existing buildings on the site. One's a 3-bedroom building and one's a 1-bedroom cottage. And just first to note, this plan has been reviewed and approved by the Board of Health, requiring several variances from state regulations and local regulations. One of the requirements that they required was to reduce the number of bedrooms from 4 bedrooms to 3 bedrooms and put a deed restriction on the property. So that's going to be hopefully less intense use of the property. Currently, the existing septic system consists of just leaching trenches in a standard Title V system with no IA treatment. In our proposed design, we pretty much put the new soil absorption system over the same location where the existing leaching trenches are. And we're confined with our own well location and the neighbor's well location to the south. We got a 30-foot variance to put the soil absorption system closer to their well rather than 100 feet, but still it's further than the existing leaching trenches from that well. The reason I bring that up is because, we were forced to also keep it close to BVW. We were able to get a little more separation than what they have there now. Right now, the leaching trench is only about 13 feet away. We're proposing a setback at 21 feet, hence the waiver requirement from 100 down to 21 feet. We pretty much used as much treatment as possible for the system. We're putting in an IA system. We're also putting in a pump chamber that's going to pressure dose the new soil absorption system, which is going to be a perk rate drip disposal system, which is very, very small tubes, and the effluent is pressurized over the field, and it's very, very shallow. The reason we did that was so that we could also achieve a 5-foot groundwater separation. As you can imagine, the groundwater is fairly high in this location. So I think based on the maximum treatment that we can place on the property and maximizing the setbacks the best we can, we didn't, obviously looking at the site, we don't have any area on the site that's outside the 100-foot buffer, but we feel we did the best we could under the situation, and with the reduction in bedrooms and all this treatment, it's going to be a substantial improvement to what was already proposed. All the work is going to take place in existing lawn area. The grades are fairly flat in that area, except the new system will be slightly mounded about 12 inches in order to achieve that groundwater separation. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Don. Any questions from commissioners? Questions or comments? RJ, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. I think this is a really good project. I would just like to point out to the commission that yet again, we have a stream we're talking about. I'd just like to point that out because we don't have any streams on Nantucket, and that just keeps coming up. But this is a great project. This is just a conversation for another day that I'm not going to let go. Thank you.
I knew 100% you were going to say that when I saw the plan. It is got conversation for the regulatory update, but yes, thank you. Anyone else? Do any members of the public wish to weigh in? Seeing none? Will, do we have everything we need to close?
Yes, sir, we do.
Don, would you like to close?
Yes, please.
Is there a motion to close?
So move, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mike. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Joe. By roll call vote, Mike Mazzarelli,
Aye.
RJ Turcott,
Aye.
Joe Plandowski,
Aye.
Tim Brain,
Aye.
John Schaefer,
Aye.
Linda Williams.
Aye.
So that thing, we're aye, that carries unanimously.
Thank you.
And we'll now move on to, thank you, now move on to Sankaty Golf Club, Inc. at 18 Hoyks Hollow Road, represented by Leo S. Dorian, who's here physically present with us today. So Leo, good evening. Yeah, just make sure the mic's all set up for you.
How's that sound?
Good.
The application that you have, first, let me just kind of go back a ways, because over the years, I've been filing emergency permits. As these structures got close to the top of the bank, we would come in for emergency permit. And of course, your regulations require us to follow it up with a notice of intent. And that's what this is. We're coming in to have an order of conditions issued to basically demo the whole site, but it's not going to be done all at once. Obviously, the club is going to try to get as much use out of the property as you can. I did look at the erosion rate over there, and in the last 24 years, that bank has come back 126 feet. I recall, like, back in the mid-'80s, being where the beach is right now, there were buildings there at one point in time. But anyways, that's the reason for the notice of intent. Now, I did hear from endangered species, and I got a phone call, and one of the things that they requested, and I think that we're going to be submitting, is basically a management and what we're going to do as far as plantings go. My notice, I said, and I know your regulations require 6 inches of loam, and I have a little bit of a problem with that, considering where this is, because that loam is going to keep going over the bank all the time. And when I spoke with Natural Heritage the other day, and we talked about a very sandy type soil. Golf greens are 80% sand, 20% peat moss. And we think we could get, and we'll go through and we'll provide the type of grasses that we're going to plant in there. And she also wanted to make sure that all the plants that we plant in there will be, native. Probably low bayberry, that type of stuff, but we'll provide that in a management plan and restoration plan that we have to submit to her as well too. Like I said, the site was in an area, basically the western portion of the site, and the line shows on the plan what's there in jurisdiction, but they're obviously taking jurisdiction over the whole site, and the club certainly wants to do it correctly. That bank, like I say, you walk along the edge, you could go over the edge at any point in time, and there's actually a fence along the edge to keep people from getting too close, but every time they move the fence, they cut off the post, and you can see exactly where it was previous times. In the last 5 years, that bank came back, about, on an average, about 2 feet a year. But like I say, average over 24 years, it's just over 5 feet itself. So you have to be careful with that rate that it's coming back. And if we have a nor'easter, it takes out a whole bunch of the coastal bank right there. At one point in time, too, the club came in from an off-island firm to try to shore up the bank and everything. They have an order of conditions issued, since been, void because it's been a number of years, but it just didn't make any sense in there. So again, the notices, so we don't keep coming back in constantly with a emergency permit to take down the buildings. If you look on the plan on the building number 8, those are recent measurements to the top of the bank, right there. And building number 1 at the top, I believe, was about 19 feet off the top of the bank itself. So, and there's actually a wooden patio that they keep cutting back. It's just north of the word patio. There's a structure there, cabana, and it's about 19 feet to the top of the bank. And I measured those about a week and a half ago, just to get a more up-to-date location of the top of the bank. And there is a fence there, obviously keeping people back. But my question, I guess, to the commission is the type of vegetation we transplant back in there. I don't think it's going to, again, it's not going to be all at once, but I think as those buildings come back, native grasses need to be planted, and type of soil that's being put in there that could live by going over the bank. Like I say, it's tough sometimes because, these storms come up and there's not enough time to pull all that topsoil back. So whatever goes over the bank can mix with the beach sand itself. And I think that's pretty much it. If you have any questions, I'd be certainly, happy to answer them.
Thank you, Leo.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was looking just during the beginning of presentation, but did you get a DEP number?
No, I checked at 2:30, I checked at 2:30 this afternoon, and we still didn't have one. Yeah, we didn't have one.
Yeah, no file number, and
Right.
NHESP is still deliberating, and I think they're probably gonna require a conservation management plan for this property, so. it
Will
might be
has
a
to
while.
Will has to turn on his microphone. I heard none of that.
He just asked if Leo had a DEP file number yet, and the answer is no.
As of 2:30, there wasn't one.
Yeah.
I'd say that.
I mean, we're gonna have to continue this application no matter
Sure.
what, but commissioners, any other questions or comments? Yeah, I mean, we can wait to see what NHESP says, but I think having the restoration areas, having the soil that's put there match the bank makes sense.
Yeah.
I don't know where in the regulations the 6 foot of loam is. If that's
It's your local
6
regulation.
6 inches of loam, 6 feet would be a lot,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's a bylaw, yeah.
It's in the local regulations?
Yeah.
All right, well, we could probably waive that if we need to, because it seems like it doesn't make any sense on this site. 6 inches of loam, I'd rather them put the appropriate mitigation sand, really, that's gonna actually meet the requirements of that site. And then we would obviously expect native plants, so.
Right.
Yeah, but we'll see what Heritage says, and I think my only other point that's gonna come in order of conditions is probably a whole lot of who knows what in that site, pipes, undergrounds, storage tanks, et cetera. And whenever we've done these permits, even if they're for complete demolition, we've added a condition that runs with the permit that says if additional material comes out of the bank, that it needs to be removed. So I would expect that we'd add this onto this permit as well.
You notice in the notice that we did, and I did ask the club, because obviously it being a commercial type of building, even though it's a private club, what goes to the C&D plants is very important. So we had an asbestos survey done of all the buildings in there, and they had a clean bill of health because I think the C&D plant down here really kind of requires that, since they have a DEP permit. So the buildings are clean as far as asbestos go. As far as the septic system, that'll be taken out, probably not left in place, not crushed in place, but taken out. The asphalt will all be taken out. And the way the asphalt will be taken out, I was asked how they would do that. And I said, well, I've been here 4 decades and I've never seen any local contractors with jackhammers. They usually saw cut a section of it and then pull everything up either with an excavator or a front end loader. It ends up on their, ACPAC pile, and it's crushed and you reuse somewhere else. But as far as jackhammers go, because she was concerned about the noise of a jackhammer out there. not kidding. So you learn something new every day, but, and obviously, we're going to have to get the HDC approval as well, too. I haven't been following it. They do have a local architect that handles those permits, and I haven't been following it, whether they've been back in there. But again, they're going to be removing these structures as a needed or required basis because of the erosion out there on the bank.
Thank you.
Okay.
Commissioners, anything else? If not, is there any questions or comments from members of the public? Seeing none, we don't have the required materials to close, so Leo, would you like to continue till July 10th?
Please.
This will continue till July 10th. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yep, thank you.
And that's it for notices of intent tonight. We'll move on to amended orders of conditions with no waiver required. So we don't need to open these individually if we don't desire to. The one we have is Frost Daisy Field Trust at 74 Nantucket Road, SC 48 3548. Would any commissioners like to hear that? Seeing not, would any members of the public like that to be opened? Seeing not, is there a motion to close the hearing on the amended order of conditions?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mike. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Joe. By roll call vote, Mike Mazzarelli,
Aye.
Artie Turcott,
Aye.
Joe Landowski,
Aye.
Tim Brand,
Hi.
John Schaefer,
Aye.
Linda Williams,
Aye.
Seth Engelborg, aye. And here's the part on our agenda that I need to check. So we didn't list this one in the orders of conditions area. So we have two options. We can move to issuing it now, or we can hold it to the next meeting.
Which one, Mr.
I
Chairman?
don't have any problems issuing. The one that we just closed.
Okay,
Frost
Daisy.
Daisy Field Trust.
Yep.
Yeah, prior to this most recent procedural update, we honestly closed and issued at the same time.
Yeah.
It's where?
Number 4, and I also thought it wasn't there.
Oh, it's in, yeah, okay, it's in there.
Yep, sorry,
All right,
Seth.
no worries. All right, well, so we'll keep that for that moment then. We don't have any other amended orders, so we'll move on to our public meeting. And we'll begin under orders of conditions, amended orders of conditions. And we'll be starting with Town of Nantucket and Nantucket Pond Coalition, Hummock Pond, SC 483908. Will get that up for us.
Let me just share that. Button was perfectly behind your head, RJ. No, I was blind. Here we go. All right, so if you guys remember, or if you guys will remember, we were waiting on a DEP number and NHESP. We are all set on that now. This one, it's basically exactly the same findings page as we've had for this same project in the past. Overview, order permits the harvesting of aquatic vegetation by mechanical harvesting within an inland water body. No waivers required. We had our NHESP, it's all set, and conditions 18, 19, and then 20 through 22 are the specific ones for this project. So the applicant shall provide the commission a yearly monitoring report demonstrating the amount of material removed any animals harmed in areas harvested for 3 years or until a certificate of compliance is issued. 21, the applicant shall be required to steam clean or pressure wash the harvester before transporting the harvester to Nantucket Island. Prior to boarding the ferry, it must be inspected by the Massachusetts Environmental Police or equivalent agency to ensure that no plant material is being transported to Nantucket on the harvester. The harvester must be cleaned in this manner before entering any other water body other than Hummock Pond. That's awesome. 22, a list of disposal sites must be provided to the commission prior to the start of work. That is all.
Anything to add, commissioners? Okay, if not, is there a motion to approve and issue this order as drafted?
So moved.
Thank you,
Second.
RJ. Is there a second? We'll take
Second.
Linda for the second. By roll call vote, Mike Mizzarelli,
Aye.
RJ Turcott,
Aye.
Joe Plandowski,
Aye.
Tim Brand,
Aye.
John Schaefer,
Aye.
Linda Williams,
Aye.
Seth Engelberg, aye. That carries unanimously. And we will now move on to the land bank at 41 Jefferson Ave, which is SC 483910. And Will can get that up for us.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, do you mind if I just say something real quick? This is Liz Phelps.
Yes, if it's administrative procedural points only.
Okay, I just wanted to let you know that we haven't received the natural heritage determination for this one yet.
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
We covered that earlier too. I completely forgot.
but we closed the hearing.
Not this one. We just closed one.
No, yeah, this is Jefferson.
Oh, yeah, we did.
We did close it.
Okay, so commissioners, we need a motion to reconsider the motion to close the hearing for Nantucket Islands Land Bank 41 Jefferson Avenue, SC 483910.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, RJ. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Linda, for the second. By roll call vote, Mike Mizzarelli,
Aye.
RJ Turcott,
Aye, we love this project.
Joe Plandowski,
Aye.
Tim Brand.
Aye.
Thank you,
and
Liz.
John Schaefer.
Aye.
Seth Engelberg, aye. Or Linda Williams, sorry.
Aye.
Seth Engelberg, aye. That carries unanimously. Thank you, Liz. And Liz, would you like to continue to July 10th?
Yes, please. And I'm sorry that I didn't say something before that.
No worries. Yeah, that's not your fault. It's our fault.
all.
So Nantucket Islands Land Bank, 41 Jefferson Avenue, SE 483910 will continue to July 10th. Thank you.
Thank you.
So now we'll go to Frost Daisy Field Trust at 74 Mattakey Road, SC 483548, which is our amended order. And we'll get that one up.
Awesome. Just had to finish making that note real quick. And again, thank you, Liz, for your wonderful catch. All right. So this is our amended order for 74 Mattakey. Sharing. All right, so we just have an amended plan of record. And then in the overview, this order has been amended to accept changes to the location of the previously approved dwelling and pool and the addition of a detached garage, both outside of the 50-foot buffer zone. And I believe that was all that was added. Everything's existing, so we had the pool conditions, lighting, et cetera. I think things were rotated like 90 degrees basically from where they were. Commissioners, questions, comments, additions? If not,
is there a motion to approve approve and issue the amended order of conditions as drafted?
So moved, Mr.
So
Chairman.
moved.
Take Linda and Mike for the second. By roll call vote, Mike Miserelli,
Aye.
RJ Turcott,
Aye.
Joe Blandowski,
Aye.
Tim Brain,
Aye.
John Schaefer, Linda Williams,
Aye.
Seth Engelberg, aye. That carries unanimously. And we will now move on to Act Two LLC at 14 Plover Lane. And we'll get that one up. It's SE 483905.
All right, so we have our two, I think I added this in today, so this restoration planting plan is on here as well, so we have both plans of record. This order permits the proposed restoration work required resulting from an enforcement order at 14 Plover Lane within bordering vegetated wetland and its buffer zones. A waiver is required for this project as proposed. NHESP, no NHESP. We've added in this additional finding, and this is after consultation with Attorney Pucci. And him and I are going to be talking more, but the additional finding that we were looking for better wording on or more clarity from Attorney Pucci again is here. So the applicant has agreed to a deed restriction, conservation restriction, and or similar instrument to remain with the property in perpetuity, preserving the restoration area. This is mildly open-ended, but it's so that we can actually determine which option is best and which option, like what the option for actual ownership or who holds the restriction, et cetera. But basically, I just wanted to make it clear that the wording was with consultation from our counsel. I didn't just make it up.
So at this point, well, I know we need to talk about the rest, but we might as well talk about this now. So both a deed restriction and a conservation restriction have been discussed before this commission. I know people have differing views on which, or if any, should be required. We have the ability by law, by our bylaw, to do either of these things. It's up to us to decide what meets the, what would uphold the protected interests and the performance standards in a suitable way, and logistically, what would be a reasonable way to move forward. So, oh, and then the other question is, can a deed restriction become permanent
Oh,
if it's a private deed restriction?
Nope.
And the answer is definitively yes. Definitively yes. There's two ways that this could happen. One is if it's a deed restriction put on by a government agency. And the second is the Conservation Commission has the ability, when issuing certificates of compliance, to extend whatever conditions are in the order of condition, or in the certificate of compliance in perpetuity. The certificate of compliance gets recorded with the deed. So even if, you know, that restriction, let's say, is tried to be canceled by the owner, the certificate of compliance will require it to remain in place. Additionally, the applicant here has indicated that they're willing to have a permanent perpetual deed restriction. But I caution you, not that I disagree or I don't believe the applicant, but I caution you that anything is possible when properties change hand, or, you know, who knows what. The future owners may believe differently, but conditions that are in orders of conditions that then go to certificates of compliance, that then are continued in perpetuity, exist in perpetuity. They're on the deed, there's no way to get rid of them. So I'll take Commissioner Turcotte's comment or question, and then we'll go to Commissioner Williams.
I'll be brief. I know that the letter came in late, so maybe not everyone's had a chance to read it. But in response, I pulled up from Mass Land Trust Coalition's website this document, and I can send this to Will, and you guys can all read it. You can circulate it. But it's called Deed Restrictions: A Limited Alternative, and restrictions that do not specifically address duration and are not enforceable after 30 years, and those with explicit longer durations, including perpetuity, are only enforceable if the holder of the restriction files periodic notices extending the periods of enforceability for additional 20-year increments. So they have to do that repeatedly, and you don't have to do that with a conservation restriction. It's just permanent. That's it. And it gets checked every year. So there's an extra step here that I think if we have the power to do the conservation restriction, we should, because it's just done. And this is specific to Massachusetts as well. So, thank you.
I will say though that if we put the if we put a condition in the order of conditions requiring them to continue to do those filings, they're required to continue to do those filings. But I hear your points about a conservation restriction, and I've made them before. Linda, it's now your turn to comment.
I have said this before, having dealt with these things ad nauseum. Private deed restriction that is not enforceable by a government body expires, period, after 30 years. My desire here, and don't get confused by filing on a deed or not filing on a deed. Special permits from the ZBA, the planning board, the Concom are all filed on your deed. However, any restriction we're putting on the property, conservation restriction in particular, imposed by a government body is in perpetuity. You cannot say a private deed restriction not enforceable, and the words are not enforceable by a town body, in this case the Concom, will expire after 30 years. But that's why I'm with RJ. It has to be a conservation restriction, which is automatically filed on your deed. So don't get confused by that. Conservation restriction, we can control in perpetuity that way and only that way. So I'm not willing to just eliminate that as the controlling document.
Okay, thank you. Other commissioners, I'll let you weigh in at this point. Yes, Tim.
I am confused, but I still am in favor of conservation restrictions, so it doesn't matter.
Thank you. I'm more confused than I was before because last meeting seemed like most people wanted to move towards a deed restriction, not a conservation restriction. Now it seems like everybody wants to do a conservation restriction, which is fine. We have that ability to do. We can require that, and it doesn't need to be hashed out today. If we want to move towards a conservation restriction, we would simply put in this finding as well laid out, and then we would put an order. It says prior to any work on this site, or prior to any work on the site that is contained within this order of conditions, an amendment to the order of conditions must be filed indicating how the commission plans to put a conservation restriction onto the site. And that requires them to do the work. So we can certainly put that in if that's what people want. It didn't sound last time like that's what people wanted, but it sounds like it's what they want now. Yes, sir. Mike, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I have a comment and a question. I originally had thought a deed restriction would be enough, given the area as it sits right now with our regulation. However, if the majority of the commission feels that a conservation restriction is the way to go, I will go along with that happily. And just refresh me, we talked about it a little bit, but who picks up the conservation restriction? Does it stay with us? Does it go to?
Well, it's not really up to us to decide right now. The body that would likely hold this restriction would be the Conservation Commission. But if we just wrote the condition that I said, it's up to the applicant to decide. Some other body could hold it if they the applicant wanted them to, but it would be unlikely that they would want that, you know. It's up to them.
Well,
Yes, Joe, go ahead.
while everyone might want a conservation restriction, the owner has not agreed to and will not agree to such a restriction, which says there must be more behind it.
Yeah, thank you, Joe. I read Mr. Wood's letter. It's not up to the owner of, or the applicant of any notice to agree to any conditions. The commission writes the conditions. The commission writes the conditions that protect the performance standards of the resource areas and the protected interests of those areas. If after we write this order and the holder of that permit doesn't agree with what is in the permit, they could appeal the permit, they could seek an amendment to the permit, they can do all the recourse that they have available to them under the act and the bylaw. But applicants don't need to agree to conditions. We set the conditions. That is our regulatory role.
How about Pucci reviewing it? Does he have a recommendation on which way to go?
Will, you can speak to that.
So I was thinking almost immediately after I opened my mouth, which I often feel this way, but I probably wasn't as clear as I meant to be on that. But part of the reason that we left that wording open, this was during my conversation with Attorney Pucci. He basically said that if we do this, then it gives him some time to actually really dig into which is the best option to keep the restriction on the property in perpetuity. We should have like a counter for how many times we're saying perpetuity tonight. But when we write the condition in a sort of open-ended way like this, we can make that determination with George, and we can issue it that way.
Yeah, so I agree, and I'm fine with some type of finding, but really, if we're gonna make sure this happens, the option we choose needs to be in the conditions section. Findings aren't as enforceable as conditions are, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Things in findings are informational, things in conditions are enforceable.
I would agree.
Linda,
Another question here.
I see your hand raised, so go ahead.
Yep. Frankly, I don't care if it's a conservation restriction or an outright deed restriction, so long as the right of enforcement rests with a governmental body. And that would make it in perpetuity, and I'm pretty much sure that's where Glenn's going. But that has to be with a governmental body of the right of enforcement, otherwise we're back here every 30 years and we're not doing that. So I had a long discussion with Will this afternoon about leaving this open-ended so we can come to some sort of a decision at some point. But I believe, if I'm not incorrect, Mr. Chairman, through you to Will, that we must close this hearing tonight, given the time constraints. Is that correct?
We must close this, we must issue this order tonight.
Yeah.
But there are ways that we can issue the order and still maintain flexibility, like some of the conditions I said before. If the only thing we care about is the perpetuity, it seems like some people want a bona fide conservation restriction and some people just care about perpetuity. If the only thing we care about is perpetuity, we can just have a condition that says, like I said before, prior to any work contained in this permit, the applicant must file an amended order indicating how they will meet the requirement for a perpetual deed restriction. And then they'll have to file that information with us before they can move forward. That will require this process to be reopened for the amended order of conditions. If we really care about the conservation restriction, we would do the same thing, but we would just say conservation restriction instead of perpetual deed restriction. Those are the options before us, and I appreciate Will and our staff conferring with town council on this, but honestly, this isn't really a legal decision. This is a policy decision. We have, by rights, in our bylaw, the ability to require either a conservation restriction or any other type of restriction on projects as security to ensure that resource areas are protected. It's up to us to decide what we want to do. So we do need to decide though. RJ, go ahead.
We've talked about this a lot. We are so close to what I think is really an amazing, as perfect a job as we could have done with something we agree was egregious, where we're gonna find them, we're gonna have made them fix it, and we have the opportunity to really make sure that it never happens again and that someone's able to check every year. There's a reason that they don't want to do a conservation restriction. It's because it is different, it is better. There's nothing better. They're called conservation easements elsewhere in the United States. There are restrictions here. It requires someone, it would be us, because they were pretty clear about that at the last meeting, that it would have to be us, to go and check after having an inventory of what's there and what's going on, which we didn't have before, a clear cut, every single year, make sure that that wetland is fine and that nothing happened to it. There's nothing better, and it's within our power, and I'm really strongly advocating for us to finish this thing off right and to have done it with a conservation restriction. Thank you.
All right. Let's just do a informal poll at this point. Commissioners, if you would like to put a perpetual deed restriction onto the property, raise your hand or say something in the affirmative. Okay. If you would like to require as security a conservation restriction, raise your hand or say something in the affirmative.
What about if you're not on either side? I didn't raise my hand for either side because my concern is in perpetuity. And that's what George has to tell us is the best way to go.
Okay, I appreciate that point, but it does seem like there is a majority of commissioners seeking a conservation restriction. What would you like to say, John?
Can we hear from Mr. Wood?
I would say no. We're in a public meeting. We received a letter from Mr. Wood that was late, but some commissioners may have read it. It will be added to the packet for the record. But I don't think there's anything that is needed beyond that at that point.
But either way,
Not-
Mr.
not
Chairman,
really.
before I vote on
Yeah.
something, and either way, what we're voting on is this open-ended finding, so we can decide concretely which way we're going at another time, correct?
Yeah, I mean, we have the ability when we craft the condition, if people really want the conservation restriction, but they want to seek more information, we have the ability in the condition we write that would require an amendment for a conservation restriction. We have the ability to, let's say, add another line that says, or to submit a letter indicating why a conservation restriction is not feasible, and to provide alternative way to protect this property in perpetuity, if the commission wants to do that. Sounds like 5 people want to put a conservation restriction onto the property.
I think George thought we were going to wait and he was going to come up with something and not make that decision tonight. That's why it's open-ended.
Yeah, I mean, it can be open-ended, but it's really, as I said before, this is, again, a matter of policy, not a matter of law. The bylaw is very clear about the security allowed to us. It says under, chapter 136 wetlands, 136, or section 136-9, the commission may require as a permanent condition that the performance and observance of other conditions be secured by one or both of the following methods. A is a bond of money or negotiable securities in an amount determined by the commission to be sufficient and payable to the town of Nantucket. The bond shall be released by the commission only after the commission issues a certificate of compliance. We're not planning on doing that here. B is by a conservation restriction, easement, or other covenant running with the land executed and properly recorded or registered in the case of registered land. Our bylaw, which establishes our authority, allows us as security to ensure that projects meet the permit conditions to place a conservation restriction. It's as straightforward as night and day. If that's what commissioners want to do, we have the legal authority to do so.
My comment would be in perpetuity sounds like forever, which it is. Things change over time. If there's a plan that says you can't do anything but keep that place up for 30 years, I buy it. In perpetuity might be for 1,000 years.
Yeah, it might, and it might not. So we do have to decide, or if people want to let this marinate in their heads a little bit, we can talk about all the other conditions, because we might have to add other conditions as well, and we can get back to it at the end, but we do have to decide before the end of this meeting tonight.
Or go with George's
Not leave it open-ended.
language. Yeah, and leave it open-ended.
Yeah, we can leave it open-ended, but it needs to, if you ask me, it needs to be in conditions rather than findings, or else we're gonna end up with nothing.
Okay.
So, well, let's walk through the rest of the conditions and then we'll get back to this at the end.
And I was just gonna say too, if that's what we end up settling on, I don't think it would be a problem to just have it in both, kind of basically the same language, but we'll talk about that. So we had 18, 19, 20 is our lighting condition. And then 21, all proposed plantings and or seedings within commission jurisdiction shall be native species with no cultivars. No fertilizer or agricultural chemicals shall be applied in any area of commission jurisdiction. 23, monitoring site evaluations will be conducted during and at the end of the first, second, and third growing seasons to observe vegetative health and cover. So that's 2025, 2026, and 2027. Monitoring reports will be submitted at the end of the growing seasons and or prior to December 31st of that year. The reports will include an assessment of the overall status of the restoration area and planting areas and recommendations. Example, management or replacement plant material per survivorship rates established within the OOC. The report will also document the presence of any invasive species present. That's redundant, isn't it? I don't like redundancy. And implemented or recommended management methods. 24, should the project area show less than 50% regrowth of native species within the first 2 years and 6 months of the permit, the applicant shall file a new notice or amendment for supplementing the area with native plantings and or seedings. 25, reports required annually or until a COC is issued. 26, all irrigation shall be temporary and must be removed before a certificate of compliance is issued or this order expires. 27, all invasive species found on site must be properly disposed of at the Nantucket landfill.
Commissioners, any additions, comments, or questions about those conditions there?
Question I have is, anything being done on the property now?
So, other than the planting that's already been completed, I don't believe there's anything now that's happening right now, but I'm not sure. I don't know if we want to ask. I'm not sure if Brian's here, but I think the last activity that occurred was taking down and altering the fencing.
Yeah, I mean, we're gonna be talking about this in the enforcement orders
Yeah.
section, enforcement action section, so we can talk about that then, but the one addition I'd like is that for the irrigation condition, I think we should also say the company and contact information for the irrigation company should be filed with the commission staff.
Actually, sorry.
Yes, Linda, any questions or comments on these conditions here? We'll get back to the restrictions later.
Is it beyond the scope to also have an annual visit to the site by Concom staff?
Uh, yeah, I mean, that's gonna be done whether we put it in there or not, probably much more than annually.
Okay.
But generally what happens is when we have conditions that require monitoring reports to be submitted,
Yep.
Will or other NRD staff go out to the property upon receipt of that monitoring report and check to make sure that the monitoring report is accurate
Okay.
and the site is in compliance with what was permitted. Anything else before we go back to the? Okay. All right. So I see Mr. Wood's hand raised. What we're gonna do is we're going to allow you to speak for procedural issues only. If it veers to anything other than that, I will ask you to stop and we will mute you. So good evening, Glenn.
Good evening, Mr. Chair. I think Linda's totally right. On the DR, our research has indicated that it can clearly be in perpetuity. We could presently waive the 21 days to get an opinion from George. I'm quite confident he'd agree with us that a properly drafted DR, which we could provide the commission in the next week, would be sufficient because it's allowed under Chapter 184. At the last hearing, the commission members were all about whether a DR could be in perpetuity. That was the entirety of the discussion. It clearly can be. And now we're back at a CR, which our client's not going to agree to. So apart from that, obviously, the finding that says that we've agreed to it is obviously inaccurate because I've repeatedly, at least on 2 to 4 hearings, said that a CR is not acceptable to our client. Thank you. But again, we'd be happy to give the commission more time. I could get, we could waive it and even get a letter in by tomorrow morning, just giving you more time if that would be of value. Thank you.
Thank you, Glenn. I do think that, no matter what we do here, we should change the condition that says the applicant agrees to, because, it's not really factual or relevant. It should be that the commission finds that the following is the necessary one. But commissioners, the applicant is willing to allow us to continue the period for issuing this order beyond the normal 21 days. That's something that they're not required to do. That's something that they're willing to do. If we would like to consider that option, we certainly can. We've done it in other cases. We do need their consent, which it seems like we have their consent, and they're willing to write a letter to that effect. If you're not ready to make your decision tonight, we can go down that route. But we'll go to other questions or comments in the first place. So, RJ?
We don't need any more time tonight. Conservation restriction is the best possible option. It's within our power, and personally, I think we should do it. There's a reason that the applicant doesn't want to do the conservation restriction. It is better for the resource area, and it can be drawn up in a way that doesn't affect the developed area already. It can just be for the wetland. The building envelope can include everything else, and they can do whatever they want there, but we have the power before us tonight with an established method to protect what was damaged forever and really put a bow on this, finish it up. So that's what I would like to do. Thank you.
Thank you, RJ. Linda, I'll go to you.
One more time. There is a reason why town council crafted this finding. It can be in the conditions as well. There's a reason why town council asked us to wait. And that's what I would prefer to do. I understand we have the right to do what RJ's saying, and I'm all in favor of that, but I'm in favor of anything that gives us in perpetuity. I'm in favor of anything that's not going to end up in court because we didn't consider an alternative, which is what town council is looking into. So I'm not arguing with the fact that we don't have the right to do that. I'm arguing with the fact that we should wait and have something crafted, is particularly if the applicant's willing to give us an extension. I think it would be irresponsible for us not to take town council's recommendation.
Thank you, Linda. I think in this case, it would definitely be wise to take the extension that is being graciously offered by the applicant so that we have more time. I personally still think we should do a conservation restriction. I know that 100% ironclad, we have the ability to do that. But, you know, let's get it right. John, go ahead.
If we do that, is there a right for them to appeal this or make this, drawn out after that?
Yeah, I mean, any order is appealable by not just by the applicant, but by the parties that have standing in that.
Okay.
Yeah, no matter, you could see some mundane routine permit that has no conditions on it and it's still appealable. But yeah, that's, if we didn't have that system, it would lead to problems. Yeah, Mike, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm in favor of the continuance, and that is not to be against what anybody else wants, the deed restriction, the conservation restriction. What I'm in favor of the continuance of at this point is I think we'll learn something from the process that we can put forward in the coming years. So I would be in favor of the continuance.
Thank you. Will, go ahead.
I just want to make a quick request that if it sounds like we are going that way, I think it's wise also. But I just want to make a request that if we do vote to accept that, I know Attorney Wood will provide me with a letter tomorrow or something, but I'm scared because this has never happened before. So could we ask Attorney Wood to also shoot me an email, like when we make that vote, so it's in writing?
Yeah, we have a process here. We would have to ask Attorney Wood for an express verbal consent to that, and then he could also issue an email, and then he could issue a formal letter. Yeah, this isn't, I know it's a little bit odd and something that we don't do often, but this is a process that we've done before on this commission and other commissions do routinely. I'm not worried about it at all.
Fantastic.
So commissioners, if you would like to close this hearing tonight, raise your hand, or not close the hearing. If you'd like to issue this order tonight, raise your hand or say something in the affirmative. Okay, all right, nobody. So that means we're going to accept the applicant's willingness to continue this for future study from town council as to what restriction would be able to be enforced in perpetuity.
And that's
Mr.
predicated
Wood.
on his offer of the extension, correct?
Yes. Attorney Wood, we need your express verbal consent to issue an extension.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, you have my express request, and I'm presently halfway through drafting an email to Will stating the same.
We do need to
Yeah.
continue to a date certain, which the first date would be July 10th. Is that the date that you wish to continue to?
No, I think given the holiday, we should push it back 2 hearings to give everyone some, breathing room.
So the next is July 24th. Is that the date you wish to continue to?
Yes, thank you, sir.
Thank you as well. Please send the email and a formal letter with your letterhead to the office tomorrow.
You'll get that tomorrow morning, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, very much appreciated. So we'll pick this back up. We'll continue this until July 24th. Okay. We'll now move on. We didn't close the Washington Street, so let's see, the Carroll at 3 Millbrook Road. We'll be on that one next.
We didn't close Washington Street? I thought we did.
Oh, we did. Yes.
The,
No,
No,
that was Jefferson Ave. We closed,
I could've been
closed
wrong.
Nantucket Island's Land Bank at 70, 72, and 74 Washington Street, which is SE 48 3907. So we'll move to that order of conditions right now.
I was gonna say, I've been wrong once or twice before.
No, we closed it, yeah. You're right. Off my game today.
It's, we had all that sunlight and then it went away. I think it kind of,
No, I think this is the last meeting of my second term, so we're gonna go into the next term strong, hopefully.
with nameplates and all. All right. This was for the 70 to 74 Washington Street Land Bank. The order permits the proposed pruning of a groundsel shrub within a coastal dune. Waiver is required for the project as proposed, which I think I have to touch up the waiver a little bit. No NHESP, and then I only had condition 18 on here.
So the first thing we need to do is determine if people want to issue a positive order or a negative order for this. If they would like to issue a positive order, then we'll need to move to conditions that would be attached to that order. So, Mike, make your point about what you would like to do.
Positive order.
RJ.
Can I ask a question to the fellow commissioners?
Go ahead.
If I were to agree to a positive order, could we agree to a height for this groundsel? Can we say they don't go below like 5 feet?
Yes, we can agree to, or we can put any vegetation management conditions onto the permit that would be put on to protect the resource areas and protected interests.
So I would agree to a positive if we agreed to a specific.
And I assumed we would be doing that.
Joe, what are your thoughts?
Positive.
Tim?
Positive.
John?
Positive.
Okay, Linda?
Positive.
Okay, let's move to conditions. So, I think that we want some vegetation management guidelines. Height, yeah. We don't necessarily need to close this one today. We could have our town staff who has a arborist background, horticultural background, get something together for us.
Internationally certified arborist by the ISA.
But if you don't think that's necessary, and we also have, landscape professionals on this commission too, so.
Pretty good. I will just chime in. I'm happy to do this now. If we want to wait, that's totally fine too. We have a solid amount of vegetation management guidelines, but they're really specifically for the view shed management stuff. If you guys want to hold off, that's totally fine. If you want to try to just craft something up, that's fine too.
Yeah, or we could just go the third route, that is prior to the commencement of work, the applicant should be required to submit a plan indicating what they want to do specifically for pruning, and that plan needs to come before the commission for review. That plan would tell us, how many inches or feet are getting cut, when they're doing the cutting, et cetera, et cetera.
Would you guys, how would you feel about exactly that, but we'll say file it as a minor mod so that whatever the plan is on record.
That
Good,
sounds good, yeah.
cool, all right.
I do think we should specifically, though, as a condition, say that all pruning is prohibited in the timeline between April 1st and September 30th. You're gonna prune this groundsel in November, right, when it's flowering, and they're gonna knock the the vigor and energy of it back a good amount by doing that.
May cause the roots to spread. April 1st and September 30th, right? Okay. Whoops. And I gotta finish the sentence up here. So prior to the commencement of work, a vegetation management plan should be submitted as a minor modification to this permit. And let's say a vegetation management plan, that could be pretty self-explanatory, but do we want to specifically call out height?
Yeah, you could say it would,
Frequency.
at minimum, specifies height, time of year, and whatever else anyone wants. Anything else? Okay, just those two then.
I'll say height and time of year. I think that's probably pretty sufficient.
Height and time of year that pruning activities will take place.
Is that cool? Time of year that pruning will take place shall be submitted as a minor modification to this permit.
Yeah. And then for the waiver, I think we're only gonna accept the waiver under section A.
Yep. So I'm gonna take this right out and then
Not cause an adverse impact, and there are no reasonable alternatives.
grants a waiver. Activities on a coastal dune shall not result in additional adverse impacts to the resource area. The commission finds that this project as proposed will not cause additional adverse impacts to the resource area and there are no reasonable alternatives. Okay, I had to read it out loud.
Anything else? If not, is there a motion to approve and issue the order of conditions as amended?
So moved.
Thank you, Mike, and Joe for the second. By roll call vote, Mike Mazzarelli,
Aye.
Archie Turcott,
Aye.
Joe Planowski.
Aye.
Tim Brain.
Aye.
John Schaefer.
Aye.
Linda Williams.
Aye.
Seth Engelberg, aye. That carries unanimously. And now we'll head to Carroll at 3 Millbrook Road, SC 483909.
This was for the upgrade of the failed septic system to an innovative alternative system. Excuse the yawn there, wow. This site is so constrained just from the site visit I made, it's wild. This order permits the proposed replacement of an existing septic tank with an innovative alternative system with associated grading and landscaping at 3 Millbrook Road within buffer zone to bordering vegetated wetland. A waiver is required for this project as proposed. So we had conditions 18 and 19, and then there's some potential for some reseeding, whatnot. So all plantings and seedings are to be native species with no cultivars. And then 21, no agricultural chemicals or fertilizer shall be used within commission jurisdiction. And our waiver was for 39018B5, in order to place the proposed septic leach facility less than 100 feet from the vegetated wetland. The commission finds that this project as proposed will not cause additional adverse impacts to the resource area. Therefore, the commission grants waivers under 393H3A of the wetland protection regulations.
Commissioners, thoughts, questions, comments, additions? If there are none, is there a motion to approve and issue the order of conditions as drafted?
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Joe. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, RJ. By roll call vote, Mike Mazzarelli,
Aye.
RJ Turcott,
Aye.
Joe Pandowski,
Aye.
Tim Brand,
Aye.
John Schaefer,
Aye.
Linda Williams,
Aye.
Seth Engelberg, aye. That carries unanimously. And then we'll now move on to, no, we didn't close Sankey, so we should be done with orders of conditions. We don't have any requests for determination of applicability tonight. And we'll move on to minor modifications.
I have to recuse from Osprey.
I have all your recusals.
Okay, good.
So the first minor modification is CMR 11 LLC at 11 Osprey Way, SC 48 3678, with Commissioner Williams recused, and that's represented by Mark Ritz. Good evening, Mark.
Good evening, Mark Ritz from Site Design, representing the applicants at 11 Osprey Way. What you have before you this evening is a request to basically reconfigure the previously approved house, portion of the house within jurisdiction. The extent of the development is almost identical, everything within a foot or two of what was previously approved. Everything is outside the 50-foot buffer. Basically, they've just reconfigured slightly the new house and the decking. That's pretty much the only changes. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mark. Are there any questions or comments from commissioners? If not, is there a motion to approve the minor modification?
So moved.
Thank you, RJ. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mike. By roll call vote, Mike Mazzarelli,
Aye.
RJ Turcott,
Aye.
Joe Pandowski.
Aye.
Tim Brand,
Aye.
John Schaefer,
Aye.
Seth Engelberg, aye. That carries 6 in the affirmative, and Commissioner Williams recused.
Thank you.
And we'll move on. Thank you as well. We'll move on to Nestor and Pipus Nestor for East Lincoln Avenue, SC 48 3367, represented by Don Bracken.
Hi, Don Bracken again, Bracken Engineering. Arthur Reed is also here. He's the attorney for the owners. This project is in a land subject to coastal storm flowage only, no other resource areas. We had a previously approved order of conditions that included a main house, a garage, and a pool. The garage with the cottage above it was constructed a few years ago, and so was the pool. The main house was never constructed, and now we're proposing a different configuration for that main house, increased in size from like 960 square feet to 1,476, in the same general area, obviously. And we're also asking for a change. The previous plan between where the house was proposed and the pool showed a hedge line and some pear trees between them, but right now the way the proposal is, the pool will go right up to the patio, so we're not proposing any vegetation in between the patio and the main structure to be built. We also have asked for an extension on the order of conditions, which is due to expire in December this year, later on in your agenda. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Don. Questions or comments from commissioners? Seeing none, is there a motion to approve the minor modification?
So moved.
Thank you, Mike.
Second.
Thank you, Linda, for the second. By roll call vote, Mike Mazzarelli,
Aye.
Archie Turcott.
Aye.
Joe Planowski.
Aye.
Tim Brand.
Aye.
John Schaefer.
Aye.
Linda Williams.
Aye.
Seth Engelberg, aye. That carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. We'll head over to Morash Gifts Realty Trust, 35 Meadowview Drive, SC 48 3836, represented by Brian Madden. Brian, good evening.
Good evening. For the record, Brian Madden from LEC. This was an order that was issued back in December for proposed cabana, pool, and patio. And the minor mod involves some reconfiguration of those features, basically rotating the pool a little bit and everything falling into place, and some related updates, but all in keeping with the original approval. I'll turn over to questions.
Thank you. Commissioners, any questions or comments? If not, is there a motion to approve the minor modification?
I'll make that.
So move, Mr. Chair. Second.
Joe got it, and Linda will get the second by roll call vote. Mike Miserelli,
Aye.
RJ Turcott,
Aye.
Joe Planowski.
Aye.
Tim Brand.
Aye.
John Schaefer.
Aye.
Linda Williams.
Aye.
Seth Engelberg, aye. That carries unanimously. And finally, Burnham and Buttrick.
I need to recuse from this, sorry.
So do I.
Yep, that's fine. So, hold on one second. So we have Burnham and Buttrick at 26 Warren's Landing Road. This is SC 48 3753. We have Commissioners Williams and Schaefer recused. And this is represented by Brian Madden.
Thank you very much. For the applicant, Brian Madden from LEC. This was for a proposed solar array within land subject to coastal storm flowage in the buffer zone to BVW. The minor mod involves the after-fact approval of installation for the underground electric line servicing or providing the power connection. The routing just took a different layout than what was approved. It's all within an open field area, so it was a kind of a best fit installation. But that was it. Turn over to questions.
Thank you, Brian. Commissioners, questions or comments? If not, is there a motion to approve the minor modification?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Joe. Is there a
Second.
second? Thank you, Tim, for the second. By roll call vote, Mike Miserelli,
Aye.
Archie Turcott,
Aye.
Joe Planowski,
Aye.
Tim Brain,
Aye.
Seth Engelberg, aye. That carries 5 in the affirmative with Commissioners Williams and Schaefer recused. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you.
And now we'll move on to certificates of compliance. We'll begin with Little Hummock, 196 Realty Trust at 196 Hummock Pond Road, SC 48 3833, represented by Don Bracken.
Yes, hi, Don Bracken for the applicant. Pretty much everything was done according to the order of conditions in the plan of record. The only thing that wasn't done was we had asked to convert a pea stone patio off the east corner of the house to a stone type patio. And that work wasn't done, and they don't intend on doing that. So that's pretty much it on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Don. Commissioners, any questions or comments? Will, have you been out to the site and do you have a recommendation for us?
Yes, and I was recommending certification, but it just popped into my head. If the patio wasn't built, is it a partial certification?
Partial certification.
Partial
compliance,
certification.
yeah.
So I'm recommending a partial certification. I almost forgot about that detail because we haven't had one in a bit. But
Is there
other than
any
that,
ongoing conditions?
1 second. Usually I have these right in front of me, but. Then I had to think for a half a second, so you know. So we do have a few. We have 3 ongoing conditions, which would be 20, 21, and 23. So 20 is our lighting condition. All exterior lighting shall be directed away from the resource area and in compliance with Chapter 102. 21, no fertilizer or other agricultural chemicals are allowed within the 50-foot buffer. And then 23, if we want to continue prior to any mowing within the resource area or within 100 feet of the resource area, the contractor shall perform a sweep for any turtle activity. And I do want to let you guys know, I was contacted to go and confirm the turtle sweep at least one time.
All right.
If any turtle species are discovered during these sweeps, the contractor or applicant shall contact the NRD for further coordination. I was thinking we probably want to continue that, right?
Yeah. So, commissioners, is there a motion to issue the partial certificate of compliance with ongoing conditions 20, 21, and 23?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Second.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Linda. By roll call vote, Mike Mazzarelli,
Aye.
RJ Turcott,
Aye.
Joe Planowski.
Aye.
Tim Brain,
Aye.
John Schaefer,
Aye.
Linda Williams,
Aye.
Seth Ingeborg, aye. That carries unanimously.
Thank you.
We'll move on to The Shadow Nominee Trust, 15 Topgale Lane, SC 48, 2052. We'll be at that year soon, honestly.
I wasn't even born then.
Okay, so this is represented by Brian Madden. Brian, go ahead.
Thank you very much for the applicant, Brian Madden. This is for the current property owner, who wasn't the original applicant. I didn't work on the original notice that was filed, but the order was issued back in August 2007 that approved the construction of portions of deck and porch, swimming pool, fire pit, pool house, and landscaping within the buffer zone to vegetated wetland, coastal bank, and coastal dune. There was an amendment filed and issued in June 2008 for a subsurface infiltration system and a minor mod for a generator that was approved in November 2011. So we did a thorough review of the Concom file, reviewed existing conditions. There's an as-built that was submitted by Bracken, recent conditions. The only minor deviation that we really noted was the final location configuration of the pool house cabana, which was just actually smaller than what was approved, but still located outside the 50-foot buffer zone. And I'll turn it over to any questions.
Thank you, Brian. Commissioners, questions or comments? Will, have you been out to the site and do you have a recommendation for us?
Yes, and I am more than 1,000,000% happy to call something that's smaller than it was supposed to be substantial compliance, just for the record.
Yeah.
And I did have some continuing conditions.
Tell us what they are, please.
The permits used to look a lot different, let me tell you that. So 19, 20, 22, and 23 will continue. 19 is the swimming pool treatment shall not include chlorinization, comma. 20, any draining of pool water shall not be allowed within the buffer zone 2 or within any wetland resource areas. Maintenance of the pool that requires the draining of pool water shall require discharge in excess of 100 feet from the coastal bank and the vegetated wetland or transport offsite to a suitable discharge location. 22, exterior lighting shall be directed away, shielded from all wetland resource areas. 23, fertilizer application shall be in excess of 20 feet from the coastal bank, shall be slow release, and limited to 3 pounds nitrogen per year per 1,000 square foot maximum application rate. That's it.
Are we supposed to see that on the screen? Because I'm not seeing it. None of us are here.
No, I mean, I'm just reading off
Yeah, it's
the
not
old
on the
order
screen. He was just reading
Okay.
it.
to
But
continue the conditions.
commissioners, is there a motion to issue the certificate of compliance with the ongoing conditions that Will listed?
So moved.
So moved.
Thank you, Mike and Linda, for the second. By roll call vote, Mike Mazzarelli,
Aye.
RJ Turcott.
Aye.
Joe Planowski.
Aye.
Tim Brand.
Aye.
John Schaefer.
Aye.
Linda Williams.
Aye.
Seth Engelberg, aye. That carries unanimously. And finally, we have 37 Starbuck LLC at 37 Starbuck Road, SE 483104, represented by Paul Santos. Paul, good evening.
Hello. Thank you. Paul Santos with Nantucket Surveyors on behalf of 37 Starbuck LLC. This is a certificate of compliance request for the relocation of a dwelling that was adjacent to an eroding coastal bank in Nantucket. That work has been completed, satisfactorily completed with regard to the notice of intent. In fact, the original notice of intent depicted the house move and a secondary dwelling all outside of the 100-foot jurisdictional area. The second dwelling was actually abandoned, and we just, the applicant simply moved the existing dwelling as far as he could away from the eroding bank. And that is currently located outside of the commission's jurisdiction. And happy to answer any questions that the commission may have.
Thank you. Commissioners, any questions or comments? Will, have you been out to the site and do you have a recommendation for us?
Yes, I'm recommending we issue the cert, and we do not have ongoing conditions for this one.
Thank you. Commissioners, is there a motion to issue the certificate of compliance with no ongoing conditions?
So moved.
Thank you, Tim. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mike. By roll call vote, Mike Miserelli.
Aye.
Archie Turcotte.
Aye.
Joe Klandowski.
Aye.
Tim Brand.
Aye.
John Schaefer.
Aye.
Linda Williams.
Aye.
Seth Ingborg, aye. That carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. We'll move on to extension requests. The first is Nestor and Pipus Nestor, 4 East Lincoln Avenue, SE 483367, represented by Don Bracken.
Hi, thank you again. As I mentioned, for the minor modification, we're asking for an extension. The current order conditions is due to expire on December 9th. We're asking for a 2-year extension to December 9th, 2027.
Thank you. Commissioners, any questions or comments? If not, is there a motion to approve the extension?
So moved.
Thank you, Mike. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Joe. By roll call vote, Mike Miserelli.
Aye.
Archie Turcotte.
Aye.
Joe Klandowski.
Aye.
Tim Brand.
Aye.
John Schaefer.
Aye.
Linda Williams.
Aye.
Seth Engelberg, aye. That carries unanimously.
Thank you.
And next we have Not So Easy LLC at 26 Easy Street, SE 483542, represented by Art Gasparo. Art, good evening.
And I'm recused from this one.
Yes, sorry. Commissioner Williams recused.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Before you tonight to request an extension to the order of conditions set to expire next month for 26 Easy Street. The applicant has spent some time revising and working on finalizing the plans, and then had a medical setback, which he's still working to recover from. So we've asked for a 3-year extension to allow time to complete the project.
Thank you, Art. Commissioners, any questions or comments? Art, do you know if this permit is subject to the Mass Leads Act permit extension?
I don't know. I didn't check that, but I don't think it is, but I'm not positive. So we would just ask for the 3 years from the current date.
Yeah, I asked just because I don't mean to be rude here, but we do request that extension requests come in more than 30 days in advance, which is less than the amount here. I'm not super worried about it, but let's just make sure that we get those in 30 days in advance in the future.
I think I missed by a few days, but I understand. Thank you.
Yeah, it's not a ton of time, but just keep an eye on it, please. Commissioners, is there a motion to approve the extension request?
So moved.
Thank you, Mike. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, John. By roll call vote, Mike Miserelli.
Aye.
Archie Turcotte.
Aye.
Joe Klandowski.
Aye.
Tim Brand.
Aye.
John Schaefer.
Aye.
Seth Engborg, aye. That carries unanimously or carries with 6 in the affirmative, and Commissioner Williams recused. Thank you, Art.
Thank you.
So we'll now move on to other business. Approval of minutes. I don't think we have any minutes to approve. Monitoring reports, I don't believe we have any of those either, but as always, if there are any questions about them, refer them to Town of Nantucket Natural Resources Department staff. Committee reports, crack?
Nothing new for crack, thank you.
All right, CPC
Nothing new.
and PNEDC.
Yes, we did have a meeting on Monday where we mainly looked at the build-out analysis, transportation manager updates, and there was some persons appointed. Liza got a one-year seat, and Christina Jelemy a 3-year seat on the NP&EDC.
Thank you. Harbor plan?
We were supposed to have a meeting last week, but we didn't have a quorum. I went out, you know where I went out to, Sconset Bluff, and 2 members that said they were going to be there were not there, one of which was Emily. And so we sat there for about 20 minutes, and then everybody's trying to figure out when to meet again, because we were supposed to have a public forum, the last one, on the 17th of July, but that may be pushing back towards August now. So we're coming into the final stretch here, but we have, just some housekeeping to do.
Thank you, Linda. This is sad to hear, but I'm sure you guys will get to the resolution needed. All right, commissioners' comments? Any commissioners' comments? Yes,
Another great
Mike,
meeting,
go ahead.
Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm not speaking specifically on any property, but I think it's time that we sent a letter to some applicants that we plan to pursue enforcement. Do you want to hear the ones I'm specifically thinking of? How do you want me to handle that?
Yeah, if you want to list those without having any deliberation, that would be acceptable.
That would be the Summer House of Nantucket Realty Trust, 10 and 16 Ocean Avenue, SE 483824, and going down the agenda, bear with me, West Assured LLC, 62 Winoma Way, SE 483869. They've been continued for a while.
Thank you, Mike. Without deliberating, we, can't really do anything about applicants deciding to continue. That's within their right. But especially for applications that came about as a result of an enforcement order, if that enforcement remains active on the site, we can amend the enforcement order or issue a new enforcement order to require something to happen. Not saying that we need to or should do those in these cases, but if anyone's wondering what recourse we have, that's the recourse we have. And if you want to talk about these further, we'll need to post it as an agenda item. Any other commissioners' comments? All right, I have one. The select board was set to do their committee appointments at the June 25th, 2025 meeting, but did not do that because one of the members was not going to be present. So they are going to do that at the July 9th meeting. But in addition to making that designation, they have automatically extended the terms of the commissioners whose terms would expire on July 1st. So Mike, myself, and Joe, your term will not expire on July 1st. Your term will expire on July 9th. And then when the select board reappoints you, you'll have to then get sworn in at that point. So please do not go and get sworn in on July 1st. You have to wait until after July 9th now. So I said this is actually the last meeting of my second term, but that is not true. Well, actually it's still true because our next meeting is until the 10th, but yeah. So by one day. So that's a little quirk, but it's not really a big deal. The other part of this is that generally, the first meeting in July, we do our officer elections and committee appointments. We're still gonna do that as long as the select board actually makes their appointments on the 9th. But that will mean that everybody who gets appointed will need to do it on July 10th. You'll have to do it that day. Sorry, but get sworn in, yeah.
I want to be super clear.
Yes, if you're myself, Mike, or Joe, and you get appointed by the select board on July 9th, on July 10th, prior to 5 o'clock, you're gonna have to go to the town clerk and get sworn in. Apologies that you don't really have a long window to do it. You have to do it on that day. So, Will, do you want to add anything there?
No, you covered it. I was gonna ask what our plan for committee appointments and everything. So
That's the plan.
that's the plan. Sounds beautiful.
That's the
All right.
I'll try to send a
If
reminder.
you're not me, Mike, or Joe, you don't have to worry about it. Any other commissioners' comments?
Congrats on getting extended then, you three, extending your term. And also thanks for the name placards, Will. I know I've been being annoying about that. These are awesome.
You should get one. Any other commissioners' comments?
Yeah, what is the procedure for name placard management?
Will takes them at the end and he brings them back and sets them up for you.
All right.
All right, anything else? So we'll move on to enforcement actions. We have 14 Plover Lane listed, but before we go to that, we have an emerging enforcement that we're gonna have to talk about that I can bring up. But before I bring up that one, Will, is there anything else that we have emerging on our list here?
I don't think so for tonight. I think we'll go to you, Seth.
All right. So we are going to have to issue, or we're going to have to open an enforcement action on the 33 Washington Street property for a unpermitted tent that is definitely within the 100-foot buffer to the isolated vegetated wetland occurring at 27 Washington Street. And it's probably in the 75-foot buffer, and it might honestly be in the 50-foot buffer. We're gonna have to go out there and measure it, but you can see it clearly when you drive by. It's right on the road edge, and we'll get photos, and our staff will measure it.
We talking
Yeah,
about in
but
town Washington Street and not
33
Washington?
Washington Street in
Mariah
town,
Mitchell. Yeah,
property owned by the Mariah Mitchell Association.
wow. I have
Um,
seen it.
Yeah, the tent is considered a structure under our regulations. We checked the permitting history for the site. They have an active order of conditions. It says nothing about any tents or seating areas. So it was built without the benefit of a permit and will need to be removed, or it will need to come in for a notice of intent
I think
to,
it's temporary, but it's still there.
yeah, whether it's temporary or not, it still was built without a permit, and
Yeah.
it's not particularly temporary because it's anchored into the ground. It meets the structural definition under our regulations. So what we're gonna do is Will's gonna go out to the site. He's gonna take photos, he's gonna measure, he's gonna get all the documentation. Then he's gonna issue an enforcement order for a cease and desist. He'll sign it, we'll ratify it on July 10th. And then following up with that, we'll amend that enforcement order requiring the property owner to come before us to explain what happened on the site and either permit the structure or permit a removal plan for the structure. Linda, go ahead.
They may have another issue, which I'll look into and let Will know. If they're gonna have a tent that's up there all summer, there's a tent bylaw. They may not have a building permit, a use permit for that tent either. So I'll look into that at the building department.
Other departments can be concerned with that, but they certainly don't have a order of conditions from the Nantucket Conservation Commission, so certainly not allowed under our regulations.
Yikes.
All right. Commissioners, any questions or comments on that? So Will, you know how to move forward?
Well versed.
All right. If you could try to do that as soon as possible, that'd be great.
Likely tomorrow.
Thank you. All right. So we'll move on enforcement actions to 14 Plover Lane. Will, do you have an update for us on this one?
I think my only updates will be just pertaining to my conversations with Attorney Pucci. We've already covered the stuff that's in the OOC, and that's obviously done. But him and I have spoke about the fines a bit and more this morning. So I've basically just been holding off until I had the exact wording from him. And there's also going to be, I don't want to use the wrong words. I think it was a demand letter, but just in case I'm misspeaking, something like a letter. He's going to be drafting a letter. And I will most likely be amending that EO hopefully by Tuesday, just depending on when I hear back from George. And that'll be for the $11,100 fine. And what he's looking into in the meantime is if there's a way for that money to go either to us or to a conservation purpose. So just kind of in a holding pattern before I actually amend that and issue it until I hear back. But I don't think it's actually going to be that long until I do. So we should have an answer, and that should be issued before the next meeting.
Thank you. We do need to be careful while not using the word fine. We're
Yeah.
issuing a civil penalty.
Civil penalty. There I am with my misspeaking.
But thank you. It doesn't seem like we have all the details for that tonight. So once town council has conferred with town staff and has that language for us, the commission will review it and get the enforcement order amended.
Oh.
Yes, go ahead.
I just wanted to tack onto that too. I think I will get all that info before next meeting. So if I do, you guys will get whatever opinion I get. So I'll send that out to you beforehand.
Thank you. I don't believe we have anything else on 14 Plover Lane. So we'll move on to staff reports.
I don't have much. Thank you guys. I'm really glad that we got plaques, and I'm sorry that I couldn't get gold lettering with wood paneling because that's what I did want. But this is good enough. And Linda, you have a beautiful plaque here for you.
Great.
You're going to love it. And
Well, there were only two of us that had the ones before, with Seth and myself.
we got you now. And I also just wanted to say thank you guys. Not you, RJ, the SBPF site visit was incredibly hot and long. John and RJ were spared. But I just wanted to thank you guys for making it out to that. We had everybody that could be there was there. And I think that's great. It was disgustingly hot, and sorry. And thank you.
All right.
And that's all from me today.
Thank you, Will. With that being said,
I was going to say there were at least 50 people there, which surprised me at this number of interested
Well-attended.
parties.
it was certainly a large turnout.
Yeah.
With that being said, at this point, all we need is a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you,
Second.
Joe, and thank you, Mike, for the second. By roll call vote, Mike Miserelli,
Aye.
RJ Turcott,
Hi.
Joe Kondowski.
Aye.
Tim Brain,
Aye.
John Schaefer,
Aye.
Linda Williams,
Aye.
Seth Engelberg, aye. That carries unanimously, and this meeting is adjourned. Thank you all.
Happy 4th, everybody.
You too.
Happy 4th. Linda, I'll find you tomorrow for signatures.
Yes, I know you will.
Perfect.